Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Now, today is Monday, the 4th of October, 2021. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you guys here. Here's what I want to say, guys. We are heading into 2022 and 2023, and these are going to be two of the blackest years we've ever experienced in the world's history. And there's reasons why I'm saying that. Everything's coming together, you know. We've got a problem with the currencies worldwide that stems back to 1971 when Nixon took us off the gold standard. And the United States dollar was pegged to gold up until 1971. And all the other currencies of the world, because the United States dollar is the de facto world reserve currency, all of the other currencies in the world are pegged to the US dollar. So when the dollar was removed from gold, because all the other currencies are pegged to the dollar, they're all floating free, basically. Floating free is what I mean is they're not pegged to anything. It's taken a long time from 1971 till now to erode what's called the petrodollar. So what they set up was they took the dollar off of gold and they made a loose peg to oil, because you could only buy oil with dollars. And they set up a system with Saudi Arabia that they would protect the Saudi Arabian nation, the United States would, in exchange for only being able to sell oil in dollars, or exchange oil in dollars. And so basically what they did was, instead of using gold as a fundamental behind all the world's currencies, they used a loose peg to oil. Dollars was worth oil. And this worked for quite a long time. Well, it's not working so well anymore. Saudi Arabia is making deals with other countries now. The petrodollar is being eroded, and at the same time we have crises starting to appear, or cracks or fissures in the world's financial system. And this is an unresolvable problem that's going to lead to massive amounts of inflation, and then a loss of confidence in the purchasing power in the fiat currencies. That, coupled with systematic other problems within the financial systems of the world, plus the residues of 2 years of a massive COVID crisis. And what we've generated is a system that's unsustainable. They've been keeping the system propped up with bubbles. In fact, it's called now, at this point, it's called the everything bubble. Because they didn't correct problems that existed in the system back in 2008. They just extended and pretended, and they actually blew the system up larger, especially within the derivatives markets. So what we're facing is a world's financial system that's ready to go into ruin. I'll describe it as nothing less than ruin, what's coming in 2022 and 2023. In fact is we're just barely sliding into this beginning of 2022 without all these problems coming to a head at the same time now. A lot of them, like we got a U.S. debt ceiling out there right now that's not being resolved, which could trigger this whole crisis. But I'll tell you what I think about the debt ceiling. I think that at the last minutes, when the clock's ticking down, they will resolve the U.S. debt crisis, the U.S. debt ceiling problem. I think they're going to do it at the last minute. So I'm not too concerned about that. I'm more concerned about Evergrande in China, the big property developer going down. And also the how the markets are super inflated right now, you know, and the first little thing could trigger a downturn, a massive downturn in the markets. Before the end of the year, even, this could happen. So we got a world in crisis right now. And you might be asking, well, why do you think 2022 is going to be so bad? And the reason why is because this inflation is becoming embedded in the system. We've got a tremendous amount of, all around the world, problems within uh, within the shipping industry and everything. There's back orders and everything. Everything's getting messed up as far as shortages. We've had a tremendous amount of droughts around the world that's destroyed crops, and on other hands, we've had them like culling the animals out there that are going to be next year's food supply, like pigs and chickens and things. You know, they're just culling them. And, when they cull, you know, they're basically destroying our food supply. Going into next year, things look very bleak. It looks to me like inflation's going to continue, and it's going to develop in a way that's called stagflation, where the economies in the world are starting to stagflate and turn down. And at the same time, what we have is we have inflation, costs of living going up. What this is going to do is in 2022, this is going to put a tremendous pressure on the people out there. Because food prices are going to double, and they might triple and during 2022. And at the same time, people's wages aren't going anywhere. And so as food costs go up, this is going to impact the general population worst. Rich people can afford to continue to buy food, and it still represents a rather small part of their income, you know, but the working class people out there and the people who haven't got jobs and everything, they're going to be impacted more by food costs going up. And so as 2022 progresses into the year, what we're probably going to see is at first it'll probably take the form of protests and things like that, marches maybe and things like that. But toward the end of the year, it could turn much more nasty as the situation doesn't get resolved, and as the money starts to turn into, from inflation or stagflation, into more like a hyperinflationary type scenario later in the year of 2022. We could see this protests and marches and things turn into more like in the lines of civil unrest, you know, and breaking out in many, many different areas. And that would only enhance things going into 2023. So the world is basically going through what has been described as a crack-up boom. It's getting ready to start. Over a year ago, actually must be pushing almost 2 years ago, I forecast all this on my shows, and I laid it out for you guys. And so far, we're right on track with those forecasts that I made. When everybody else out there was saying that we're going to have a deflation and the stock markets are going to crash and everything. Now, this is like 2 years ago, or best part 2 years ago. I was saying that we're going to have an economic recovery. Well, we've experienced that economic recovery, and it's pretty much over now. And it only inflated asset bubbles larger. It inflated things like prices of things like fine art and things like Bitcoin went through the roof with that recovery. And the recovery came about from all the stimulus money that they released into the system. And I knew it was coming. I knew that stimulus money was going to buoy everything and create a recovery. But I also knew that it was going to run out. And way back then, this is when they were first doing the stimmy checks and stuff. Way back then. I said that it would probably last until the end of 2021. And then I said we were probably going to go into this thing. Then start moving into this hyperinflationary scenario. Well, so far I'm right on track. But the recovery is ending a little bit early because the central banks unanimously did two things. One of the things that they did was they started this repo operation. What's called a reverse repo operation, where they drawed liquidity from the system, from the banking system, to the tune of well in excess of $1 trillion. This drawed a lot of liquidity from the system and parked it at the Fed. Within the banking system, the banks would exchange their liquidity for collateral, things like treasury bonds, with the Fed. And this is still an ongoing process, you know. And the Fed also started doing this taper talk about a taper. They're going to taper and everything else. This had a negative effect upon the liquidity that's in the system. And also, they stopped all of the fiscal stimulus. They just cut it off cold, the central banks around the world. You know, you're not getting your stimmy checks anymore. That's fiscal stimulus. They cut off all fiscal stimulus. This effect of them doing all that is draining liquidity out even faster than I thought. I thought the liquidity would at least last into the new year, 2021. I thought it would last through the first quarter of the 2021. And I thought we would be at the place that we are right now. But we're there about 5 or 6 months early because of what the Fed did that I didn't know that they would do. I figured that they'd keep on with their fiscal stimulus. No, they cut it all off. So the crisis is beginning a little bit earlier. That and Evergrande happening. And the nervousness around the debt ceiling debacle. The crisis is coming a little bit early, and we could actually have it start before the end of the year even. Because back then I was saying, hey, you know, we're going to have a great Christmas coming up ahead this year, 2021. Well, now it's not looking quite so great because of what the Fed did. And why they did all that is, you remember Jerome Powell come out and said, he said, we got tools to fight inflation. Well, they're showing you their tools. But what they're risking is creating a massive and sudden onset of a deflationary event, something like what happened in 2008. And in fact, we could be on the precipice of such an event right now. So there's an awful lot going on right now. An awful lot of people think everything's just fine. You'd be amazed how many people think everything's just fine. But we're on the verge of crises. Not one crisis, but many crises beginning right now. I'm here, guys. I'm keeping my eye on it all for you guys. And you'd be amazed how much research I have to put into this. I probably 4 hours a day I spend online doing my research, and that's my primary research tool. Is I have a high-speed internet connection, and I know the different places to go on the internet over years of doing this job. I know the different places to go to continue with my research, to try to stay ahead of this thing. And I've been successful at staying a little bit further ahead of it than most people on the internet. And this is why I have a loyal viewer following across the internet, is because they know that I'm a little bit, generally I'm a little bit ahead of everybody else. Sometimes only by a matter of hours, you know. But I become one of the good sources to go to for up-to-date information because of the amount of work I put into it. About 4 hours a day, you know, worth of research. And I really like my job, and that's why I do it. That's why I'm there and very vigilant every day, 7 days a week, doing my 4 hours worth of research every day. And you know, I enjoy my job. It's not that hard. I mean, it's mostly internet. I have to search the internet and find out the stories that are breaking, you know, as quickly as they break, you know, and I have to fit that into the scenarios that's happening in real time here on the internet. So I'm like a watchman or a watcher, watching the internet constantly to see what's going to happen for you guys, so you guys can just tune into my show and basically get the update and the scoop on what's happening in real time in the financial system. If there's any new events happening within the financial system, I have them here. And generally just as quick as the other guys, if not a little bit ahead of them. So thank you for listening to my show. Lots of comments in the comment sections. You guys have a great rest of the day. And I love you guys, my fan base out there. Thank you for all you do in watching my shows and commenting and giving them thumbs up. You guys have a great day, and we'll catch you guys in the very next show. Bye-bye.